Good evening. Hello, welcome to the final program in the 2025 Greystone Pilot. Just because we like to switch things up, we've got a little change of plans tonight. Our
Our speaker was coming a great distance this evening. She's from Virginia, and we did receive a text this morning that she was not feeling well, but she had made it partway of the trip, and she was going to try to make it. And I don't think she's going to join us. I think that her illness has stopped her from coming this evening. But we do have Plan B. And so we do have another presentation for you this evening. It may not be on the West Virginia mining history unless a miracle happens and she happens to come in. Maybe we can have both. But right now, I think her illness has prevented her from coming. She did text me early this morning and say that she was ill, but she was going to try to make it. And we haven't seen her yet, so looks like might have delayed her coming. So.
Our good friend Dale Rothert and the attendant is going to give us a adventures in Ohio transportation, or Ohio Valley Transportation History. Tonight he's a pinch hitter, and we thank him for volunteering to do this in very short periods for us. So again, thank you all for coming out tonight. This is our last program. Lots of familiar faces here. Thank you all for coming to these programs and supporting us throughout the 2025 series. We do hope to see you all back in 2026. Planning for next February and March is already underway. So thank you to everyone who's given us ideas and names for that, because we do have a good range of topics and speakers already to think about for next year. So for those of you who are regulars, you're going to be subjected one more time to my plugging the library by comparing it to an advertising slogan. And since the topic of tonight's program was going to be coal mining, I thought I'd keep it local and compare the library's good soul energy, which uses the slogan, fuel the world for a better tomorrow. I'd like to think that libraries also fuel the world for a better tomorrow. A 2024 study conducted by the University of Pennsylvania in partnership with the New York Public Library makes a compelling case that public libraries should be recognized as essential pillars of well-being within a community. Among the key findings were that 92% of respondents reported feeling peaceful and calm after leaving the library. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I'm just wondering, because today hasn't been the most peaceful and calm day for me. 90% reported that the library increases their love of learning. 88% said that their library use has supported their personal growth. And 74% said that the library use helps them feel more equipped to cope with the world. At a time when digital overload and hurried schedules fuel anxiety, libraries its use are the antidote. So next time you visit the library, don't just think of it as picking up a book or a newspaper or a DVD, but think of it as investing in a better tomorrow for yourself. So there you go, you've survived all the last of my library's meals for another 11 months. So again, this isn't going to make any sense either. I was going to say, speaking over speaker tonight, the programming chair of the Greystone Dialect Historical Education Society, Eric Keller, dug up tonight's guest on social media with the coal mining fund. We are grateful as always to partner with the Greystone Dialect Society for these annual programs, so I'll pass the mic over to Eric and have talk about Greystone Dialects.
Thank you so much. Thank you all again for coming. It's so nice to see everyone again. This is our last one, but certainly not our last adventure. So looking forward to seeing you all back again next year for our winter lecture series again next year. And it will be every February and every March. And as you guys, many of you know, every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And we look forward to seeing you guys again this year. We also have some exciting events coming up over the summer and more developments with Greystone Viaduct. And again, we're always looking for new members to join us on this adventure. So always stop by our table and think about membership. Think about joining us because we have a lot more to do in Malaire and a lot more adventures to go on. So again, I want to apologize that we have a little change tonight, but we've made it through COVID with the Winter Lecture Series. We've zoomed those. We had level 4 snow emergencies, and we can do it. So thank you guys for being great sports. And Ed?
If people can't wait 11 months to come back here for the speaker series, is there anything happening in May, like May 2nd, here in the library that they may be interested in participating?
You know, Ed, it's funny you mentioned that. I'd like to bring up Ed Bowers to speak on this.
So we are really blessed this year that the B&O Railroad Historical Society is holding their mini convention here in Bel Air the first weekend in May. I think it's May 2nd and 3rd. It'll be Friday night and Saturday. There'll be events going on Friday night over at the plaza, then Saturday here in this room, I believe, right? Okay. And the speakers all day. So there's a fee to attend, but it's open to the public. So I certainly encourage you, as being a local person, obviously interested in history, to come and share with people from all across the eastern United States that are B&O Railroad enthusiasts. So that's this May.
Thank you, Ed. So if any of you are interested to get on the right track, join us May 2nd or 3rd for the B&O referendum.
Okay, thank you, Erica, thank you, Ed. We'll get on to tonight's surprise program here shortly. I do have my usual announcements. I do ask that everybody silence their cell phones at this time. The bathrooms are through the hallway to the left. And tonight's program is being live streamed. If you missed any of the previous ones, you can always visit our website to watch those, with the exception of last week's, which was in person only. Okay. Our surprise speaker tonight, Dale Rothert, came to Eastern Ohio and the Wheeling area in 1967 to start a news talk format in radio. Worked in local radio for 18 years and also served as an FAA designated pilot examiner. He holds an advanced flight and ground instructor certificates. He taught aviation ground school at several local colleges and schools in their adult education programs. Please welcome with us tonight to the last minute program about transportation in Ohio Valley, Dale Rothert.
Thank you, Aaron, and it's a fun thing for me to be here tonight. I've been talking to groups of people for many years. Aaron says it's only 7, but for me it seems like 20 since I used to be on the radio before I left broadcasting and went with the United States Postal Service and retired from there a number of years ago as a postmaster. So be that as it may, we'll see what happens. Let's see if I can make this thing go. Off to a good start, folks. I will change the slides. Playing with this thing, there you go. Isn't it wonderful when you have the right tools, you get the job done? Okay. Talk about adventures in transportation, because that's what I did before I went into broadcasting for about 20 years. And as Aaron mentioned, I spent a lot of that time in an airplane, teaching other people how to fly airplanes. How it all started? Well, it started with a walk. It started with somebody you see here tonight. The first transportation that was available in general was the kind that we would convince to carry us on their backs. These are not U.S.
No.
These are, what kind are they? Yeah. Transportation then got to the point where we could sit down and go along for the ride. Of course, we had to convince somebody to pull it, but we could go along for the ride. And then some guys got the idea that if you put that boiler that you use to cook the soup on its side, hook it up to things, you might be able to make something move along. Came up with the railroad. This is the East Broadtop Railroad, by the way, which is over in eastern Pennsylvania. And if my memory is correct, you still can take a ride on this. It's in, we go down the line away from us, turn around down there and come back. And it's quite an adventure. It's narrow gauge, by the way. It's not a full-size train. It's 3 foot instead of 4 foot 8.5 inch distance between the tracks. Well, if you're not going to train, you got to go by car. And if you're not going to ride a Mustang, you might as well drive a Mustang. Gets worse. A couple of guys over in Dayton, Ohio, a couple of brothers, decided that going around the horse cart wasn't actually the best way to get from place to place. They figured out how to put some fabric together, put some wires, and put some motors together. And anybody know who these are?
Wright brothers.
Wright brothers. This is at the Air Force Museum over in Dayton, Ohio. If you haven't been there and you have the opportunity, take it. It's really an interesting place to go. If you were going to get there in a hurry, this was the guy that would get you there at well over 1,000 miles an hour. You took off from London, passed the sun, and landed before it got to New York. You passed the sun on its way from Europe to the United States. This is the Concorde. There's 5 of them that the Brits had, and I think the French had 5 until unfortunately one of them crashed and blew up. This thing, as you may have seen in the in movies and things, this nose drops down like that, trying to take off and land. And the reason it does that is so that the pilots can see the runway, otherwise they get that big pointed circle in their face and can't do the runway with this. This is in, this picture was taken on one of its trips into Toronto. And it landed almost literally before it took off. The Brits were flying 5 of them, the French were flying 5. It's what it looks like head on. And the heat that was generated by the friction going through the air lengthened the airplane in flight. I think it got to be, don't hold me to this because it's been a while, something like 3 or 4 feet longer in flight than it was on the ground. And when it landed, back together. And there's a there are places in the airplane where they would have like instrument panels, and then on the ground you try to put your hand there, you hit the panel. In flight, you put your arm all the way up there because things spread apart from the heat. Abraham Lincoln paid a visit to our area on his way to become president. Anybody know that? Anybody know where it was? Just northeast of Caddis, Ohio. If you go over to Caddis and you go north, you'll know there's a railroad eventually going east and west of it. It's a line that goes from Columbus to the Ohio River there on Mayo Junction in Steubenville. Lincoln stopped for breakfast just east of Steubenville, Ohio. And there were trains that ran from Caddis down to Caddis Junction, bring people down to see Lincoln. This is Caddis Junction as it stands today. If you've got your car and go there right now, it's still an active railroad. It's the railroad that runs from the Ohio River to Columbus and then on to Indiana. The line here is the line that goes up to Caddis. So when they came down to see Lincoln, they came down those tracks. Those tracks are still there today. This is still an active railroad. Anybody know whose lunch that would be? Well, if you were on this space in orbit, that's a typical meal that they eat up on the space station. It's an actual space meal. You put a lot of fluid in it to make it more liquid. Anybody remember this? Silver spade. Well, this is a gem of Egypt. Silver spade was another one. The people in this picture are people probably more bewildered than you are right now, trying to figure out why I'm up there. These were travelers who were passing through the area on Interstate 70. And I was in the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce at the time, in St. Clairsville. We've got the Ohio Highway Patrol on our side, went out on I-70, kept the family, pulled them over. They didn't know what had been wrong. They're just driving through. I said, would you like to see an interesting thing? They said, sure. So we took them down, gave them a good look at the gem of Egypt. But these, I still don't know where they live. They probably live in New York, California, or someplace. They were pulled over by the Highway Patrol on I-70, took them down into the strip mine and let them see the scene. Same thing from a different point of view. That's what Silver Spade looked like towards the end, when they were demolishing it and taking it out of service. That's the cab, that's where the operator sits. Certainly you can see.
Dale, get away from that box.
Stay away from the.
Yeah, that top button has the pointer on it.
Yeah. See, I'm new at this. But that's the, where the operator says, pretty well paid job, I understood. And I wonder why. What's this all about? Sea lions? Somebody gets one of my high school stuff. Federal Express. When he was in college, Smith, they had to do one of the classes that he was in was a business class, and they had to come up with a concept for a company, draw up a plan, formulate it. He came up with the idea of flying stuff around fast as an express operation. He called it Federal Express. Got a C- by his teacher on that. That teacher probably looked for a different job. But he came up with, the guy who came up with this concept in college was graded C- for the idea that you can take airplanes, load them up dark nights, fly them across the country, unload them, and have incredibly fast delivery service. There's the other guys. If the guys with the brown truck ever stopped at your door and dropped the parcel off, it may have happened. It may have come out of one of these. That's in Louisville, Kentucky, by the way. That's FedEx is in Nashville, I think. I've lost track. But every night, I realize this is a daytime picture, but every night there's a gathering of these things. It starts like about 9:30 at night, and it just flood the airport. Next 3 or 4 hours, it's unload the airplanes, reload the airplanes, and off they go. That's how they get it from Los Angeles to Peoria by the next morning. That's the UPS terminal. Blackbird Airport. That's the U-2. That's the one that we flew over Russia. That's the one Gary Powers, well, not that actual airplane, obviously, but that's the one Gary Powers was flying when he got shot down over the Soviet Union. This thing gets to be something like 9 inches longer than it's flying. It gets so high that it expands. And that one is, if you have a desire to really get a good look at it, that's at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. If you're ever out in Dayton, it's not actually in Dayton, it's up a lot, up outside of Dayton. But that actually was one of a dozen or so that they flew secret spy missions. That's the cockpit. And it's tiny in there. I know it's a big picture, but it's tiny. You can see the person standing on the step ladder. And that thing's clipped down. You're in there. That's what it looks like from that step ladder that we just saw. One engine on the left, one engine you can barely see on the right. Co-pilot gets to go there, he doesn't get to see anything except the panel in front of him. I don't know how he lands the thing if the pilot gets there. If this were a fueled airplane ready for flight, those wings would look wet. Because the seams leak fuel when it's on the ground. It heats up and seals as the metal pushes together. But on the ground, those wings would look wet and you'd see fuel underneath the airplane. But it gets so hot that it just seals itself so tight that it no longer has any leaks. Eventually it cools down and starts leaking. Thing flies up. Don't hold me to this, but my memory says it's like 1,200 miles an hour. It's just cruising speed. Probably go a little faster if we have to. That's one of those is the one shot down over the windshield. That's the office in the airplane we just saw. Where you're going, how fast you're going up and down. Up top there is the, if you're in clouds and you don't know where the ground is, the ground's where that ground, the black stuff is, the white's where the sky is. The pairs there are engine instruments, tells the pilot how it's going. But that's what it looks like to the pilot when he's going pushing 2,000 miles an hour. Somebody came to see how things work well in the airports. You can get this thing in there. That's just that's a Mitchell B-25 for those of you who are into the airplane aspect of it. And it was landing at will. It's been 10, 15 years since I did this, so I don't remember exactly when it was coming. This is a B-17 that stopped by Wheeling on a tour, and if you wanted, your pockets were deep enough, you could go for a ride. They took people for a ride in there, even with the open area for side gunners. But, that's a back 111, British Aircraft Corporation Model 111. That's the predecessor of what's now U.S. Airways in Allegheny. What they did, their big pilot training base in Allegheny was a Greater Pitt. And you can imagine if you've got a bunch of guys learning how to fly airliners, they're going to take up a lot of space and want to keep using the runways. TWA and United not too excited about that, so what they did, they come down to Wheeling for their training. And this is Wheeling Airport, and that's a training flight. And they just come down there and shoot landings and take off because there's no delays. You go to Pittsburgh, come in and land, and maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes later you get to take off. Then you go get back in line again to come back and land. So maybe in a good hour, you might get in 5 landings. Down there, you get 5 landings in 10 minutes. So that's at the Wheeling Airport. That's a British Aircraft Corporation. That's a British airplane, a back 111. Lieutenant Wheeling Airport. But these are student pilots, so to speak, or we pay a student pilot at this stage of the game. These are people who are working on their appropriate certificates and ratings so they can go to work for Allegheny, which is now, as I'm certain you know, U.S. Air. That's what the Wheeling Air, no, I'm sorry, that's Pittsburgh. I'm lucky enough to be going on vacation, and I thought, what the heck, you must if you're gonna fly to Pittsburgh to New York, and then from New York to London, you might as well fly to Pittsburgh from Wheeling. So this is what the Pittsburgh airport looks like from the air as I'm approaching the airport. You see the 5, those of you who know that's, that runway faces in the northeast, that's 050 on the compass. And by the way, I'm flying these over landing at Pittsburgh. We've just put our wheels on the ground here and still rolling out. We're gonna go up to the main building. This is what it looks like from the pilot seat when you're taxiing up to the terminal. Very good. How I took the picture and flew the airplane at the same time, I'm not sure, but I'm flying there. Now, this is, as you may or may not be aware, this is a number of years ago because some of this has all been remodeled. But I'm actually flying into Greater Pitt to get on one of these guys to go on across the pond. Three of them sitting there. That's what they look like when they come out of the factory. That's in Toronto, Ontario, and as you can tell by my, or you would surmise by my remarks, it's a new airplane. They do come out looking like that before they get painted up. It's probably a Canadian Air Force plane, but they build them at that airport in Toronto. That's how the penguins get from city to city between games. Now, I doubt that they own that airplane. They probably charter it. It's Pittsburgh Penguins transportation between games. And that, I think, yes, that's taken in Toronto, so they must have been playing in Toronto that day. That's this guy just, I was up the airport one day and he turned up. There he is inside. You can see the steps over there. They had it open for tours. Oh. Probably can see it.
Dale, you're gonna knock it off.
That's,
Yeah.
I remember what summit it was. Well, there's two of them. The one with the engines on the wings, that's the premier, president, what do they call it, the head of Russia. That's his plane. The others is the not so important guys came in the other one. But that was at Greater Pitt. There was an international conference of some kind in Pittsburgh. And this is the transport the Russians got to go to Pittsburgh. This brought their transportation. That's a cargo plane. They open the back of that and their limousines come out so they don't have to depend on local cars. Don't have to call a cab. That's also Russian Air Force. Biggest one that we've got, that's for those of you who are in the numbers, that's the C5. The Air Force guys call it the aluminum overcast. Wow. This is the Russian this is what they use to carry their shuttle around. You know, you see the US space shuttles on the top of the 747. The Russians carry their shuttles on this airplane. That was taken in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know what, it's actually written back to Air Force Base. I don't know what it was doing there, but it's basically a cargo plane. You can see the humps up on top where the wing is. That's where the Russian space shuttles would be attached when they're flying them around as a taxi cab. A little closer view. And you gotta bear with me a little bit. I haven't seen these pictures in a while. Not quite sure what's coming. Oh! Anybody know who those guys are? Thunderbirds? Do you know what, this was actually at Pittsburgh where the photograph was taken. But they were coming, not to Wheeling, St. Clairsville. Anybody remember when the Thunderbirds gave a demonstration over the high school in St. Clairsville? They came down in formation from Pittsburgh, did their whole air show over the football field at St. Clairsville High School. I can't remember if that was a Wayne Hayes brought that about or which congressman pulled the strings. But the Thunderbirds actually did their air show over the football stadium at St. Clairsville High School. And this is a team that somebody on that picture I recognize.
Yeah, I do too.
This is actually in Pittsburgh. And as I said, I was in radio before I did this. I was interviewing the commander of the Thunderbirds at radio. That's what the Air Force would call a taxi cab. I think we call it a C-141. That's it. That's out at Wright-Patterson at the Air Force Museum. And by the way, you're seeing this stuff for the first time. I haven't seen these for years. That's why I'm kind of. Uh-oh. Not the good place to be, I think.
Yeah, thanks for telling me.
But that's inside the Museum of the Air Force at Wright-Patterson at Dayton. And I don't know who was lining up on the target here. Looked like it would have been a good place to be standing. Things were going well. But that's an actual targeting device shining from an airplane up there somewhere. Air Force training. Anybody know the Air Force was in the railroad? That's a United States Air Force training program. Anybody got an idea what that is? Ever heard of the guided missiles? Okay. The roof of that thing opens up. There's a missile in there. And these trains ran during the Cold War randomly out west. They just go down a line and railroad would send them up another line. And they were just roaming all over the west, ready to stop, open up, and fire. I didn't even know about this thing. I can't remember where I shot this. I think this is I think this is a bait. That's my pure attempt at German. It actually, I gotta tell the truth, it's not a zeppelin, it's a balloon. There's a difference. But if you're up in the active area, you go down the right side or the correct side roads, that's how close you can get to the river. And that's I can't see the end number on it. That's one of the ones, as you may know, they have a fleet of these things. This one is one of the ones that lives in Akron, and one that lives in Miami, one that lives out in the Los Angeles area, and they have one that lives in Europe. So they have 4 blimps all the time. The difference between a blimp and a zeppelin, this is just a big balloon. Its shape comes from being inflated. They get shot at. They take shots at them to go by. And it's not inflated so tight like a balloon that we would have in our house. It's just a sag a little bit in the bullet holes. But they'll come back with holes in these things. You can't put like these. As hard as that is to believe, at least it is to me to believe. The dirigible has a metal frame inside there, and they have gas bags inside. But this thing has got its shape from being inflated, from being blown up, just like a balloon. I kind of mixed feelings. When I was a kid, years ago, Wonder Bread charted these things. Big willful Wonder Bread flying around. And what they did is at the grocery store, you could enter in a cardboard Wonder Bread your name. They had forms. And they took names out, and you could go for a ride on the Wonder Bread balloon. I got picked, believe it or not. This is grade school. I picked to go for a ride, and you I didn't get to go. I had to go out to the airport to look at it. Didn't get to go. Later, somebody felt sympathy for me because I could actually fly one of these. If you could call it flying, what you're doing. This is a wheel twice the size of the tire on your car. You can just constantly shove it forward, constantly pulling it back because the air, thermals, pushes the front of the blimp up. It's only going 25 miles an hour. It pushes the nose up. So you start putting it down an elevator to get the nose down a whole lot. By the time you get the nose coming down, the tail's in the lift. Now you're looking at the ground out of the front of the thing. Now you're pulling back to try to get it back up. So a ride in the blimp is like that.
I didn't know that.
The one on the left is the older style, and the one on the right is the newest flavor of Goodyear airships. And you can both take it up in Akron. Interesting thing, has anybody in the room seen one of these take off? Yeah. What they do for takeoff, you take the airship and you heave it up like this. It's almost like heaving up nothing because it's lighter than air. And then they, the ground crew all gets on and grabs it and lifts the feet off the ground and it pulls it down. When it pulls it down, the tire bounces. Now the airship has bounced once like a basketball. When they get to the top of the bounce, they hit the food, the gas, point the nose up and go. That's their takeoff. They don't roll down the runway. Landing, they do. They come down and they put that, because they only got one wheel and they don't really roll. Come down and roll on the wheel. Actually, what they do is they fly up to the mast. Guy climbs up on the mast, grabs the cable, and pulls the thing up against the mast. It's really something to see if there's climbs up the ladder. There's a cable hanging down from the front. Drags that cable over that yellow device and gets over that cable, brings it through the hole up at the top, cranks it in and connects to the mast. These are also taken at Akron. That's one of the current airships. And they get some lift from the shape of the airship itself. But most of the lift is just the fact they're lighter than you're ever starting with. That's the one hanging down, that's the one that they pull through the mast and lock into the mast. The other two hanging from the front of the cabin are the ones that they pull them into the mast with. Those drop down and whole gang of ground movement pulls them up against the mast. They don't want to drive in against that mast for obvious reasons. And you see the engines, they can make the engines turn. If they want to go down and they haven't got enough air going over the elevators in the back to push it down, just push the engine and push it down. When they're going up, the engine pushing up. This is one of the newest ones. The old ones, the engines wouldn't swivel like that. I didn't fly this one. I fly one of the old ones. Flew. And Harry's got it reversed. So he apparently went up towards the mast and he jammed into that mast. Just going the mast slowly. But the thing is always lighter than air, and they, depending on how many people they got sandbags in there, just ordinary sandbags. Depending on how many people they take the sandbags and put them on the ground. Put all the sandbags they got in at nighttime. I was just saying, you'd be just as happy to go along with the wind. Because it's just hooked one place. And it does swivel in the wind like a weather vane on the barn. It'd be facing that and the wind start blowing, swing facing that way. And there's, this is, I don't know if this is the European ship that was shot in Akron. You see D, LCGY, that's the German registration. So this may be the European ship that happened to be in the U.S. at the time. And you can see the engines on the back, they can twist around and help do its steering. You can see the German flag up there too. Sometimes you have to put good steps in that first step on the line.
Dale, how many people does it hold?
I think they can put 10 in there, but they rarely have more than maybe 5 at the most. What they do, there's 2 pilots, and they're in there for the day. They'll leave at like 7 in the morning, and they're in that thing till 7 at night. Not being in that. Eats everything in there. Because it flat out, it might get 35 miles an hour. So if they're going from Akron to LaGuardia for shooting a baseball game or something, that's a whole day trip. It's more than a whole day trip. They just don't have any red lights that they have to do. But I think there are 10 seats in there, but there's rarely more than probably 3 people in there, 2 pilots and a room. Once they're in there, they're there for the day or the night. I took a picture of this. These people obviously were Star Trek. It's the neatest gravestone I've ever seen, and that's up. Medley Blind. It's Jefferson County, little wide town, the white spot in the road is a town. If you were in a road, you go up the hill, you go out there a little bit, and there's that town. Right in the name of the town. It's a cemetery. I thought that's the neatest gravestone I've ever seen. I don't know how other people feel about it. That's actual. I didn't take the other side. The other side's got the name and the date's birth and all that stuff. That's not somebody's train set in the basement. That's Thomas with kids. are 2 or 3 of these that go around the country to fairs and things. I think this one is at, when I took a picture of it, I think it was at Strasbourg, I'm not sure. People made a statue on the town square of some soldier on a horse or something. This is on the town square in this town. That's their town square monument. And again, I can't remember, it's over in eastern Pennsylvania. It's the monument on the town square. That's a, what's called a tank engine. Way back in the back. Aaron was very good in showing me how to do this.
You're gonna set it off again.
You might not.
This is where, that's where the water goes and the coal. And this thing alongside there is also
That's what.
water. And then hidden behind that, as you can see coming out the front, is the boiler. That's just a little switch engine. It's-
There it goes again.
Question,
Yes,
was that steam engine really made in the United Kingdom as a British steam engine, or was that made here in America? Because the smokestack makes me think if it's a European railroad, so is that really a British European steam engine, or was it really made here in America, if that's in Strasbourg?
the short answer is I don't know. I would guess it probably is in England.
Yeah,
I would guess. But,
I can tell by looking at the front end of the smokestack.
Yeah,
There's no
but
calculation.
that's the way they call a tank engine, so it doesn't have a water tender behind it, because it carries its own water with it. And it's used basically as a switch in guard duty.
There's no buffers shown on it also.
I'm sorry?
There's no buffers shown on, that's on European railroads.
Yeah, right. And I can't remember, Kath, do you remember? You probably remember.
Probably.
You don't
Excuse
remember
me?
where we saw this, do you? Eastern Pennsylvania somewhere.
No, I don't remember. I do know that it's not built in America.
Oh, there's the answer.
Uh,
It's the Flying Duchess. The Grange, and I don't think that's the Grange, Illinois, but I think it's a different Grange. There, if you want more information. Oops. Lionel, that's my railroad. Actually, I don't have it. Well, I've got the cars and everything, but they're in boxes. But Lionel, for a while, in addition to some of the other promotional cars they had this NASCAR series. There's the Marshall University's train. Actually, it's not owned by Marshall University, it's owned by the C&O, and this is down in where's Marshall?
Huntington.
Yeah, that's where that locomotive is. You can see a couple others behind it. The CSX has a big locomotive facility there, and they just painted this one up as a town monument. And that's it, by the way, that's what we at Model Railroad, we call it dummy. There's no motor in there, it's just a shell. It's an empty shell. Had a motor at one time. This is a Louisville sports team commemorated on the Paducah and Louisville Railroad. Louisville Cardinals. I'm not a sports guy, so I don't know who the Cardinals are. There's another sports team on the Paducah and Louisville. They painted some of their engines up for sports. And that's what they Northern Rumble look like. That's their livery, just rubber plain and double. But the reality of it is, it doesn't matter what it looks like, we're really full of cars. That's the Monon Railroad, which runs north to south, almost through the center of Indiana. Anybody recognize where that is?
Say it's just north of 26th Street.
That's near OV. That's part under the bridge used to be tracks. And OV would be up in this direction. As long as it's still there, I don't know if they tear it down yet.
It's gone.
But that's the line that came up from South Wheel.
Did that go out to Tunnel Green?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there's the other side of that bridge. You can see 470 up there. It's greenish highway. There's the other end. It's all, there's Wheeling Tunnel. If you've been in that tunnel, you drove up that way, you know how minutes.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. That's the tunnel under High Valley Medical Center. That's the other side. That's the trestle that's going over to the tunnel that goes through Wheeling Hill, and on the other side of the tunnel crosses River Road, and then it crosses the Ohio River. There you are. That's, you can see the highway up above there. That's Wheeling Hill. Straight through there eventually. And there's actually two tunnels there. I didn't know that until I took these pictures. This tunnel ends and there's a gap in there, and then there's a second tunnel going down the road. And this is the other end, which you can't see. This is taken from there. And that's it. Anybody have any questions that I can't answer?
These tunnels you just showed, are they still open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I qualify my yes. I don't think they've been sealed shut. The last time I saw them. So, okay.
Former Mayor Glenn Elliott and I were having a discussion with Grow High Valley and let them use them for rub mushroom.
Yeah.
Because of the mushrooms in there, so we actually looked at them.
You showed the silver spade and the gem of Egypt, and I was a reporter at the News Register back in the early 70s when they were active, and they moved those shovels from the north to the south of the interstate highway.
Yeah, I remember that.
Cross I-70.
And what they had to do is build a roadway across one lane, like 20, 30 feet high, to accommodate all that weight. And then they moved to the median, they cleared that out, because traffic was closed, built another one on the other side of the lane of the interstate highway, opened it up, and they had one-way traffic going, and that's how they moved it from north to south.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, the tracks in Cadiz, Ohio, that President Abraham Lincoln rode on, that was on his side. Who owns that railroad line today? I mean, I'm more in a modern day railroad. I mean, I like Norfolk Southern, Wheeling and Lake Erie, Amtrak. So what's the line currently in Cadiz? Who owns that line?
It's Jerry Jacobson owned it for a bit. It's the line that's based in Zanesville.
It's the old panhandle, isn't it?
Well, he means the current owner of the
Yeah.
railroad. Can't pull it out right now. But it's active from the river up to just short of where the photos were, because they take trash up a hill on the line, and they built there's a landfill up there. And they built the line up the side of the hill to get to that landfill. I want to say it's the Ohio Central, but I could swear to that. But technically, it's still an active railroad. Technically, you could leave Meadow Junction and go by train to Columbus and Indianapolis.
Which I assume that maybe Wheeling and Lake Erie. Maybe.
No, the Wheeling and Lake area is parallel up there. There's two railroads. The Wheeling and Lake area goes on up to
Brewster.
Sugar Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like if you're going
Ohio
Route
Central.
7 through Mingo Junction, like the old bridge, the old Norfolk and Western Railroad Bridge.
Mhm.
Like you see 10 cars like you're going through Route 7 and the top of the bridge up in Mingo, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's where William Lake area operates at.
That's right, that's a William Lake area. And they join, with another line at a point out in the woods from Caddis. The two lines go together, and one line goes down then towards Denison and those places. Actually, where we started this presentation, the dairy, the horses were. And then the other line comes over the trestle. They all get together down there and run. They used to run parallel, but they took the one out and they just both run on one side of the tracks. Anybody else? I thank you very much. Yes.
I wanted to mention one thing about transportation. You touched very briefly on the automobile. But one of the primary sources of transportation in this country is currently US Route 40, which originally was a historic national road. It was the very first federally funded highway. In 1806 it was started. We started Ohio in 1825. So this year is the bicentennial of the national road in the state of Ohio. It's 200 years, and it was the main street of America.
And if you want to go on National Road from St. Clair's to Old Wheeling, you can't because the bridge is closed.
Yeah.
You know? All right, thank you very much. Yeah, what's the
That's the free ticket.
Sure, I'd love to. It is ticket number 5483919. 5483919. Who's in the basket? Yay! All right, then we have one more.
This one was hard to get.
It must be a good one. And this is for our door prize. Ticket number 6023900. All right, you can visit our back table and pick from a wide variety of goodies back there. So, well, guys, thank you all so much for coming. And I won't see you next week, but I'll see you
See you next year.
next year.
May 2nd.
See you next year, or maybe May